Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife and sharing some fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. Today I have two guests, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Dr. Cecilia Dintino and Hannah Murray Starobin. And they are the joint hosts of the Twisting the Plot podcast. And it's a fabulous podcast. I've been on it, so it's obviously fabulous, but it's really good fun. And I love these two. They're very inspiring, and they're doing all sorts of exciting things, which they're going to tell us about. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to see you.
It's lovely to have you here. So I'm going to kick off with, how did you both come to be doing what you do?
It's a long story.
Make it short.
All right. Want to do our little nutshell story, Hannah?
Sure.
Essentially, we're both about the same age. I'm a year older. And when we turned 50, we are psychotherapists. So for years we've been working with other clients, and we started to hit, but we hit a little mini crises with ourselves, right? Hannah, we were like saying to each other, like, what are we supposed to do now? You know, what is this stage supposed to be about? Like, what happens next? Where are the rituals? Where's the roadmap, right, Hannah? And we started to get very, I would say, we say all the time, we got really into complaining about it. We really did. We were like, we complained about menopause. We complained about there's no roadmaps. We complained about the loss of our physical youth and beauty and sexuality.
You can't see, but anybody who's watching on camera, I'm going, what? No.
Yeah. And like Hannah likes to say, we gave really good talks.
We did. We gave whole talks where the plight of the woman over 50. And it was in that process that we sort of came to the realization that the lack of maps meant that it was an open possibility, that we can make it up, that we can do whatever we want with this stage of life. And that was really the turning point for us. It was like that, okay, then let's figure that out. Let's figure out how to make life what we want.
Yeah, it really happened in a moment where I was doing more ranting and complaining. We had, by the way, gathered groups of women together for country weekends and for the main purpose of complaining. And you need to complain and we'll show you how. And we were really approaching the whole thing like a crisis, right? Like it was a crisis, a psychological, social developmental crisis. And then truly it was, I think I was at Hannah's house even. I was ranting. And she looked at me, and she gets this, if you know Hannah, she gets this little glint in her eyes, and she's very mischievous. And she said, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this means we can make it up. And that changed everything. So we've been like, and that's where we came up with the term twisting the plot. It's a story that we can twist, and we twisted it from then on, I would say. Right, Hannah?
Absolutely. And I think, just to give a little bit of background, that we've known each other. We met doing musical theater together. We met auditioning for a musical theater class in college. So we have been friends for 40 years. So we have a lot of history, which is good. And we, it is part of, it's been interesting. We've been there for each other's stories. So it's a kind of fun piece that we're rewriting our story together and sort of saying, let's help everybody else write the story that they want.
It is a fun piece. You're right, Hannah. I'm thinking about that right now. We've been at each other's weddings. We've celebrated all the milestones, and then we got to that cliff at 50, and we sort of held hands and jumped.
Exactly. But it's classic, isn't it? I think it's so easy, especially at midlife, to get stuck in that complaining mode, isn't it? And I think we've talked about before that women quite like sometimes having something wrong with us. Absolutely.
Well, I think, and again, I want to defend us. I think that for so long, that was sort of, we sort of were programmed to think that was the way to be heard. That was the way, right? To say this isn't fair, this isn't right, we're not happy, I mean, it's sort of makes sense. It makes sense if you look at the trajectory of our lives as women, right? So, yeah, so we really have made a commitment since then to twist the plot, to
Right.
find our way through this with fun, hope, imagination, and creativity being our number one, right? So it's I have to say it can be a challenge. There are mornings that I wake up and I'm like, I ain't feeling it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, since we started this, we've each had knee replacements. Hannah's had a hip
Yeah.
replacement. It's Hannah's had a lot of loss, a lot of family loss. I mean, it is not an easy stage of life.
And the culture doesn't exactly give you inspiration to see it in a positive. If you look at it from an advertising perspective, everything is about, oh, think about your retirement, how are you going to survive financially? And, there isn't a message out there except for few of us, like you, Rachel, who's saying that there's something else, that we can make this an exciting experience. But we're fighting a little bit of an uphill battle. I think it's changing, but it is something that we're reinforced. The narrative that we hear is that it's, oh, get ready for the end. It's like, I'm nowhere near that. And so I it's like that. So if that's it, then if there's nothing else,
But
what?
even that,
Yeah.
even that the end has to be negative, right? Like
Mhm.
Hannah and I, now we feel like we're going to be saying this when we're in our 90s, like there's more to go,
Mhm.
until it's done. Isn't there more to learn and be and do? Like even like it's so interesting to me that even like, so even this, we talked about it, Rachel, right, on our podcast, like this clinging to midlife, as if the beyond, midlife and beyond, as if the beyond has to be bad. Why does it have to be bad?
Right.
Why does it have to be there will be pain, there will be suffering, there will be loss, but can't that still be wrapped in a story of interest and curiosity and some kind of growth? I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm determined to take my narrative to the end.
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, it's a narrative for us to create, isn't it? And I genuinely believe that, apart from, if we have our health, apart from a short, hopefully, period of decline right at the end of life, there's really no reason why we can't get better and grow and, as you say, remain curious and have a wonderful next chapter in our lives. But we are taught, aren't we, these narratives about the downhill slope and life's over at this age or that age, and it's downhill to retirement, and then you do nothing and you sit in a corner and you do your knitting or whatever it is you're doing, and then it's all about the grandchildren. But what if you don't have grandchildren? You don't want to be defined by grandchildren.
Exactly. And by the way, we've met now plenty of women who don't have their health and they're still growing and still becoming, so even like our whole narratives about health and ableism and everything also need to change, so.
We interviewed Nancy Kessler, who has a business, oh my God, the name just went out of my head, where she writes memoirs for seniors. So she goes and sits with people. Thank you, Memoirs Plus. And she tells the story. She sits and writes their memoir and she creates this. And we were talking to her, and some of these people are really, close to the end of their lives. And we were saying, oh, something about them having the experience. And she said, no, they're living until they're not. Right. And their story continues until it doesn't. And it was a really good framework for me, that it was, yes, of course, they're still living and they're still growing. And we need to make sure that that's a option, that there's something to learn and to experience. So
so this whole experience has pushed us, which I think Hannah and I are both so grateful for, to question our own biases, constantly. They're there. I mean, they're going to be there. they're so ingrained in us. And even though we are sort of like people who are questioning the whole thing and reinventing, we still have them. And I hear them constantly coming out of my mouth, constantly.
So do I. No, I'm kidding.
She has to cut me all the she has to really, she has to work on my mouth. She has to say, cut that, whatever. I'm Mrs. Maisel, so just get going, and I don't know what's going to gems here and there. So anyway, we're very excited about this, and I think, Rachel, meeting you has been so exciting, because I think even since we've been doing this we've been thinking about this and doing this, when you say for about 5 years, Hannah, growing it, thinking about it, changing it, so much has changed in the 5 years.
Oh, yes.
I mean, just this month alone, so many books and articles coming out about menopause, and it's very exciting.
It's a good time to be midlife and beyond, I think. Yeah, I think it's very good. But on the whole ageist language thing, I've become a rampant finger wagger. and when somebody says something, I'll go, no, I'll start wagging my finger. I'll say no. So the other day I had a couple I was talking to, and they'd come to visit their daughter over here, and they were talking about how they'd been together 30 years. They were a French couple, and then the man said, yeah, and we're now dinosaurs. And I looked at him and I said, you're not a dinosaur. I mean, I'm sure he was like, I don't know, 57, 58, maybe something like that. And he was referring to himself as a dinosaur. But I've got another friend who's early 60s, and he's talking about himself as elderly. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? No. Because if you're a dinosaur and you're elderly now, what are you going to be when you're 90?
Right.
Let's not lump everybody together in this sort of like 50 up, 60 up, and everybody's geriatric when they're 55. I mean, duh.
Yeah. My father used to say he was middle-aged. He just didn't know anybody who was 150. He hung on to the bitter end, but not in a way of denial, but, in a way of saying, no, I'm still vital. And he was starting a business when he passed away. He was
fantastic.
Like in the midst of it.
So we've talked already a little bit about your mission, but how are you going about fulfilling that? What are you actually doing? Tell me about what twisting the plot means for you.
Well, it's a couple of things. I mean, one thing is obviously the podcast is one way to talk to people, to diversify the story, to tell the story of everyone, women who are, what we like to think is there are women who are facing change, women who are in the middle of a change, in the messy middle, and people who have come out the other side. And we want us to share the fact that people are not alone, that there's a lot of us out there who are trying to figure this out and do something different. So that's one way. We also have run some workshops, which are really fun, to try to help women sort of learn the skills they need to get out of their own way, in a sense, like with mindset, but also how to use their imagination and creativity and begin to imagine how to take the steps to create the life you want. And that's been really incredibly moving, to bring a group of women together who have felt alone, have felt that they're not being seen or heard in the way in which they know there's something there. They know that there's potential, that they've got a voice, that they've got something to offer, and they're not finding an opportunity to do that. And you put a group of women together and it's just amazing. And so that's been really fun to do as well, beyond doing a lot of writing and other ways in which to kind of get the message out there. Anything else, Sam?
That's great, Anna. And we're constantly, I'm like researching, we're still fine-tuning, researching. What is the map? What is a roadmap that we can offer to women so that they can say, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump off the cliff with you guys, but I just don't know how to do it or what to do. And we keep tweaking it. Like Hannah said, the biggest part is mindset, what you think, and learning to use your imagination, believing in possibility, right? Believing that who you can be in the future, what your life can be, may not exist right now. And that idea that you can invent it, like that to me is the most exciting piece of what we've come to. And we've also come to this awareness that a lot of the women we talk to are very concerned about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do it? And how am I going to do it? And we think the first step is who. Who are you? Who do you want to be? And if we can help women think about their identity in a new way, then it sort of folds into what am I going to do a little easier. And I don't know what you think, Rachel, but that's been our latest thought processes, that this whole idea of invisibility, that women feel invisible in the culture, and it's a very real thing. I mean, supposedly we even go off the censures, and like all the research, like after 45, there's women don't even show up in data, a lot of data science, but I think the biggest problem is that we go invisible to ourselves too. We stop asking ourselves questions. We stop dreaming about who we can be in the world. And so Hannah and I are sort of kind of like moving things in that direction now, and that's really exciting. And we find women responding very quickly, right, Hannah? We have just like so many women have come to our workshops, and then they call us or write us and say, I got this job, or I'm in a new relationship, or I finally, left this job that was killing me, and they credit it to twisting. And I think it's permission. I think it's the permission. I think it's the cultural permission to recreate yourself that maybe is our biggest contribution.
I think that's a big theme, actually, that we do need permission, don't we? We need just somebody to say, it's okay, you can do this, you can start putting yourself higher on the pile of priorities.
It's interesting. It makes me think when the Women's March that went on in Washington after the inauguration.
I was there.
Were you?
I was there. Yes, I was. That's my claim to fame.
Yay. Well, it was fascinating to me because, of course, it was multi-generational and all those things, but there were so many. I felt like my peers were there because now our children are out of the house, if we've had children, or we're ready. And it was, a sea of midlife women.
Yes,
saying,
it was.
Okay, I'm going to take this on because I can do it. I've got time. And it was amazing experience in that way,
Yeah, I'll have to send you pictures of me and my placard. And,
I would love it.
And I have my pink pussy hat. Got one of those.
I do too.
It was amazing. Yeah. And I think for me, it really showed the power of women and the power that we have the older we get, if we choose to exercise that power. But it's all about choice. It's about having the confidence to choose, to remain engaged and to find your voice as well, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. You get a group of women together and people are a little timid about, well, I want to do this, or I thought I might do that. And you see everyone go, great idea. And then you just see this like, all right, I can do it, But I think it's the aloneness that people feel that it's hard. They need to feel that there's support and encouragement,
The march is a great metaphor because we've run into some problem over here in the US with the march because of different points of views, different, whatever. There's a lot of infighting. And the thing is that's a problem. That's a problem that Hannah and I also see with not just with women, but we want to make sure to avoid it in our group. And we're doing some podcasts now we had someone recently talk about her queer identity, and we had somebody else talked about intersectionality. It's so important that we're not prescriptive about this, like there's no one way to be a woman over 50. In fact, the more the better. And there's so many causes and there's so many ways to lead and so many things that need our attention. And I guess, the other piece that we really want to do is embrace the diversity of it. So, because it's so easy for us to get sort of like tunnel too, right? This is what it means. This is what we're telling you to do. Even Hannah and I notice ourselves like, well, we don't want to say this is the only way to do it, right? So that's tricky because we need permission. We need to we long to find our tribe. but we don't want to be confined by our tribe, we want to be a global group somehow. But anyway.
And don't you think also, though, that well, this is the patriarchy has kind of taught us to compete against each other. So women compete with each other, and then we can fight with each other.
If there's only so much resource, and there's only certain people, if there's a hierarchy, and that's what the patriarchy is formed around, a hierarchy, right? And so it causes this problem that's been our human species problem since the beginning, don't you think? Like, we're all fighting for resources. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I feel so many men are choked by the patriarchy, right? It's not even about, if we even take it out of gender and look at it as a system of thinking and being that just in of itself pushes people to the margins, like, I won't have empty nest. I have a disabled child. We're all different. And boy, and seeing what the world does to somebody with disability too, like, right? Like, talk about living in the margins, so it's just, anyway. So yeah, I would say the patriarchy is to blame, but that doesn't mean we're blaming specific men. We could pick a couple to blame if we want. But they're victims too, right? Of a thought, of a think, of a way of being that I think we can disrupt. And maybe it's up to us, right?
But I think you're hitting on something, Rachel, that is important, that I think women need to lift each other up and not compete. And it is part of that compare, contrast, judge that we've been somehow taught to do. And it's hard. It's a mindset that we really have to work on. But I think you're hitting on it. It's that we've got to stop, competing with each other and fighting with each other and lift each other up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what you're doing with Twisting the Plot is effectively a side hustle for both of you, isn't it? You both do other things. Do you want to just tell us briefly what each of you does?
I'm a psychologist, and I have we each have full clinical practices in our office in Manhattan, in Chelsea, Manhattan. We used to share the same office, but then we could never see each other because we had to work on separate days. So different offices now, but in the same neighborhood. And I'm, I also am a drama therapist, and I teach drama therapy at New York University, and I teach at Columbia as a psychologist and supervise.
And I'm a social worker by training and a psychotherapist. And I had a full career in the theater in New York, working on Broadway and off Broadway, which was my very first career. And then I went back to work and specialized in psychotic disorders, and worked inpatient psychiatric for 10 years. And I truly twist my plot. I realized I think of myself as being sort of cautious, but I've changed careers about every 7 to 10 years in a big way. But yeah, so I have a psychotherapy practice, and we both write and do other things on the side too, as well as Twisting the Plot. So we keep busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
We'd like Twisting to be more of what we do, so we're trying to move things and make more and more and more space for Twisting. So.
But I think that's the exciting thing, isn't it? You might start something as the side hustle, and gradually the side hustle becomes the main hustle, and then things move around and you twist it all up and shake it all up, and then you end up hopefully getting to where you want to be. But I think that's the interesting thing, because I think sometimes people and women in particular, because you have finite time, you think, oh, well, I haven't got time to do this. Whereas actually, it's about how we choose to spend our time and how we choose to prioritize our time. And if something sounds interesting, why not explore it and then see how it grows? Yeah.
And it's been my experience that side hustles give you energy. You think you don't have any time for it, and you really, let's be real, it looks like you really don't. And in many ways you don't. But every time I've started, I had a therapeutic theater company, Hannah and I, every time I went with Twisting, every time I've started my side hustle, I get so much more energy. It's because it breaks up the routine. I think it gives you some other focus, other way to think. So,
Well, at the very least, it even expands what you're doing. It's changed my work as a therapist. So it's brought things to the, forefront that might not have been. But yeah, I agree. You get something new. It just requires a certain amount of imagination and a little bit of a leap of faith that, I'm not a high risk person. So I've made none of these changes without it being very calculated and careful. I'm not somebody who just throws all caution to the wind, but you just have to keep figuring it out, and it is busy, but it's exciting at the same time. So
now, you touched earlier, Cecilia, on possibility and seeing possibility, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you was whether you have read The Art of Possibility by Ros and Ben Zander, because I read that recently and was quite blown away by it, and I think you have read it, haven't you?
I have read it.
She's holding it up to the camera as we speak.
And I read it, a while ago, and then I need to reread. I don't know. I think that I want to say something ageist, like I don't retain, but it's okay.
No, I'm wagging my finger at you.
Not that. It's that I have a full hard drive and many degrees, and I have to, I just have to. So and also I think that when you reread something over and over again, you always look at it with different eyes. So
yeah,
yes, it's a wonderful book about possibility. And the diagram right in the beginning, Roz and Ben Zander put this diagram where they put 9 dots, and they tell you to make 4 straight lines without taking your pencil off the page, and it's impossible to do unless you leave the box, right? And for so many of us, we presented that at many workshops.
right.
We can't imagine that it's okay to leave the box.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I think that is just like, I love it. And anyway, so yes, we have. Did you enjoy it? You read it?
I loved it. Yeah, I read it recently, and I will be going back to reread it. But it has so many tools to use to keep you open to possibility, doesn't it? And to enable you to think differently about situations. I particularly liked the concept towards the end where you think of yourself as a board game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then you think of life happening to you on the board game of which you are the board. I know it sounds a bit weird when you haven't read the book, but then to actually think, okay, so how did something happen in my life when I am the board of my life?
Right.
And that makes you think about things in a completely different way. It sort of takes away the judgment, doesn't it? And just it makes you curious, like, okay, so how did this happen?
I'd be curious is the main thing, right? That's like, oh, how did this happen? Isn't this interesting? And look at these different parts to my game, to my board, right? And plus it puts the whole thing in the idea of play and pretend. She says everything's invented.
Oh, yeah, it starts with that, doesn't it? Everything is invented, so you might as well make up your own story.
So many of my clients fight that.
Yeah.
They say that's not true. And I know that it's really hard to get it because it doesn't really mean that bad things don't happen to you. It's not invented if something tragic happens to you or you're abused. It's not invented. It's not that, but that what you make of it, how you grow from it, how you change from it, how you story it is your invention. And that's really I think it's a hard thing for a lot of people, not just my clients, to get. It is a hard thing to grasp, right? It is. But when you do, it's so freeing and not just freeing in a happy way, but you're also then free to have your feelings, like, right? We can have whatever feelings we want about our lives and what happened to us. There are feelings. It's our story. It's our experience.
And you can't change the story, but you can change your feelings. You can change that. You can say, I don't want to feel this way about this anymore. I'm going to change my narrative in the way in which I respond to it. Yeah.
And also you can change the ending of your story.
Yes, exactly.
Just because it's going one way doesn't mean it's going to end in a particular way. That is a lot of the time in our power. Obviously, I know a lot of the time it isn't, but often it is. And certainly, as you say, how we respond to it is within our power.
I think that's the thing people get stuck on, the idea that if a tragedy happens or something, that is this defining moment, and that it decides, when the truth is how you handle it or how you choose to experience it or look at it is really within your choice. And that's confusing for people.
Yeah. And it can be a defining moment, but how do you want it to define you?
Exactly.
Right?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share it, and maybe leave me a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening. You can find out more information about this episode in the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you'll find strategies, support, and resources to help make your midlife magnificent. There's a wellness program, courses, midlife mentoring to help make the most of your next chapter, and our online members club. Because life's just too short for plain biscuits. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.